Well, hello there, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to another episode of Skywind 007. On today's episode, we're going to be looking at the various considerations you should have when you decide to purchase an iPhone. So if you're in the market for a new phone, you're probably going to ask yourself, which phone should I go with? And you're probably going to wonder, should I go for an Apple device that has the iOS or an Android device that has a Google's Android? So it's always a little bit of confusion whether which one is better, which one is worse. So in this video, I'm going to give you several reasons why you might want to reconsider getting an iPhone. And the reason is because there are a lot of things that are wrong with the iPhone. I'm going to make this list in a random order, so it's the first thing on the list is not necessarily the most important one, or the last one is not necessarily the least important one or the most important one. It's just a random list, but all of these things are an issue. The first thing I want to mention is the connection to PC. Once you buy an iPhone and you plug it in to a PC, you're going to realize that nothing happens. So that's the first issue you have. If you have an Android phone and you plug it into your PC, the first thing that will happen is that it'll pop up. A message will pop up and it'll tell you to maybe unlock the phone, and then it'll give you options as to what you want to happen the next time you plug it in. With an iPhone, that doesn't happen. You have to go into the settings and you have to change the storage to get that to work, if you know how to do that. I'm not even going to bother telling you how that works, because that's going to be changing from different versions of iOS. So depending on when you're watching this video, that might be a different step. So you're going to have to look up that step to see what the updated way of doing that is. The next thing I want to mention is connecting to a Mac. You might think that an Apple phone would easily connect to a Mac using that USB wire that you get, but you'd be wrong. Once you connect your iPhone to your Mac with that wire, you're going to realize something. It does nothing. So that's another issue right there. You do have to go into the settings on the iPhone and change how it reacts to a connection. And over here, you're going to have to either use one of two softwares. You're either going to have to use music or image capture, depending on the version of the operating system that you have on your Mac. That may be different, because if you plug the wire from the phone to the Mac, you're gonna see on the left side, you're gonna see iPhone, but there's gonna be nothing on that iPhone. So that's the other problem that iPhones have. The next thing I want to talk about is sending files to a Mac. So if you want to send files to a Mac from your iPhone, you might want to use AirDrop. The problem with AirDrop is that it's very slow. So sending files to and from an iPhone, between an iPhone and a Mac, is always a problem because it's such a slow connection. So you can use AirDrop, but you have to set that up, number one. And number two, it is a slow way of doing it. So you have to get used to the slow function of AirDrop. So it's always better to have that cable and just connect it directly to your Mac. But the problem is that is not a very consistent way of making that connection, because sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. It all depends on image capture and music. The music that used to be called iTunes, but is now called Music. You have to use that application. Also, you cannot send files from your Mac to your phone unless you use AirDrop, which is very slow, but I'm going to talk about that later. Another thing you want to know about iPhones and using the iOS in general, whether it's an iPhone or an iPad, is that you're going to have a separate account for YouTube. If you have an Android device, you're going to use the same account that you use on your Android device for YouTube, so you're already set up. But with an iPhone, you have to get that separate YouTube account. The next thing I want to talk about is that most of the newer iPhones do not have a fingerprint reader. And the reason why that's important is because if you use an iPhone, you're going to be using Face ID. But the problem with Face ID is that you have to aim it to your face. You have to click on the power button, aim it to your face, and then swipe. So I'm going to talk about that later, but that's an issue because when you have one of these, all you have to do is put your finger on the fingerprint reader, whether it's back here or over here. It's very easy to do and you don't have to aim it anywhere. So this always takes longer. And you always have to push the power button and you always have to swipe. So we are going to talk about that later. The next thing I want to talk about is Face ID. The big issue with Face ID is that you have to press the power button over here and then you have to swipe. And once you swipe, it'll ask you for Face ID. And if it can't recognize your face, it'll do this. So now you have to type in your code, or you can try again, power it down, power it up, swipe, and try again. So there is no way around that. If you try to get around that, I looked it up on the internet, on YouTube, there's just no way around it. A lot of people defend the fact that you have to do this and then this, and then aim it to your face. They think it's a good thing. I think it's a bad thing. I'd rather have the Android version where all you have to do is press over here and it automatically turns on. And you have to do this every single day. Every time you turn it on, every time you go into your banking apps, you have to use that Face ID. So you have to aim it at your face. So Face ID, although it seems like a good thing, it's actually a problem in my opinion. I'd rather have a fingerprint reader than Face ID. So there are good things about it. So if you're wearing a glove, like in the winter or your fingers are wet, so Face ID is a good thing. So there is a plus side to that. But for the most part, 99% of the time, Face ID is a bad thing. Another thing I want to talk about is headphone jacks. So I know for a lot of people, they think, oh, well, you can always buy a Bluetooth headphone if you want to listen to music. The problem with that is that you always have to be charging your AirPods. If you have AirPods or whatever wireless device headphones that you have to charge that. So you do not have a headphone jack. So if you want to get something that doesn't require a battery, rechargeable battery, you're going to have to get some dongle over here, an adapter, and then connect your headphones. So it's going to be sticking out all the way like that. It's going to look ridiculous and it's going to risk breaking something either on the phone or on the adapter or on the headphones. So in general, not having a headphone jack is a bad thing. Also, when you don't have headphones, you don't have a microphone. So if you use that, and I know most people don't use a microphone because most people don't care about recording too much, but I do. So that's another problem, but I'm going to talk about that later. The next thing I want to talk about is no microphone. So this is what I was saying a moment ago. When you have a Apple device like this, I used to normally use my microphone and I would plug it in on the headphone jack. So it's a combined headphone and microphone jack that on Android devices, it's usually right here at the top, but an Apple device does not have that. So in order to compensate for that, I ended up spending $40 on a separate microphone that connects via the lightning connector on this. So basically the only reason why I spent this extra $40 is because this does not have a headphone jack. The next thing I want to talk about is the pause button on record. When you go to record on your iPhone, when you have to record on your iPhone, there is no pause button. So here's the camera. So here's the record button right there, and you start recording, and there is no way to pause. If you need to go do something for a while and come back to your recording, you cannot. You have to stop the video and create a new file, create a new clip when you come back. And for people that do a lot of videos like me, I'm a YouTuber. I do a lot of videos. That is an issue. And that was not an issue. That is not an issue when you have an Android phone, because Android phones do have a pause button. So like I said, Androids do have a pause button. So let me show you here. If you press record, it'll start recording. And now you have that pause right there. Those two lines, that's the pause. You can pause. And you can do whatever you want to do and keep recording if you want. And there's that pause again. And then you can stop the file. You can stop the recording if you want. Like that. And that might seem trivial to most people, but if you're making a video like I do, and I make a lot of videos because I'm a YouTuber, the issue with that is that since I can't pause, I have to stop the recording and then start a new clip when I start recording again. At the end of the day, because I can't pause, I have all these clips. I have maybe 10 clips that I have to join together. If you don't do that and you let the camera keep recording because you want to make a single file, you're going to have this gigantic file that you have to go and edit and trim and take out all the bad stuff, and transferring that huge gigantic file is going to be an issue. So you're going to have all this, either you're going to have this one this huge file, or you're going to have all these little tiny clips on your phone, but either way it's going to be complicated. It's going to make everything more complicated. It's better to just have that pause button, and iPhones do not have a pause button. The next thing I want to talk about is Apple Pay. So a lot of people do use Apple Pay, but not everybody accepts Apple Pay. So if you go to places like Walmart or H-E-B or any other place, not everybody accepts Apple Pay. So if you have an Android device on a Samsung phone, you're going to have Samsung Pay, and that is universal. So Samsung Pay is accepted everywhere. Every store, anywhere where there's a credit card reader, there's going to be Samsung Pay. But not everywhere is going to accept Apple Pay. So Apple Pay is very limited. So you do have it, but you still have to bring your card with you. So it's kind of pointless of having something but not being able to rely on it. It's better to just go with a Samsung phone where you can use that everywhere. The next thing I want to talk about is the keypad. When you the keyboard, when you have an Apple device, that keyboard does not have numbers. For example, let me open it up. For example, right here, you see this keyboard, it does not have any numbers. So if you want to type a number, you have to go over here. And there are your numbers. And then if you want to go back to the letters, you have to press over here. And you go back to the letters. If you have a Samsung phone, or I should say an Android phone, that's not the case. You do have those numbers. Let me show them to you. So here's a keyboard, a common keyboard on older Samsung devices where you see at the top of the top row has those numbers. The more recent Android devices will have a separate row for numbers on the top, so you won't even have to share the numbers with the letters at all. But on a iPhone, you don't have those numbers at all. You have to press that button on the lower left. So that if you do a lot of typing, that's definitely going to become an issue. if you have an iPhone. And I don't do a lot of typing. That's the weird thing. I don't do a lot of typing, and it is an issue. I can't imagine those people they spent the whole day doing and they have to keep pressing that button over there just to switch to numbers, and then press it again just to switch back to letters. Okay, the other thing I want to talk about is forced shutdown. I have a coworker, I used to have a coworker at work that she had an iPhone, and at some point it just froze up. So iPhones do not have a forced shutdown. If you have a Android device, you can just press and hold this button, and no matter how frozen it is, it's gonna just it's gonna force shut down. Let's just look at it. So let me press and hold. I'm pressing and holding. It's asking me there a question, but it's gonna shut down anyway. There, it shut down. It didn't matter. It's coming back. So it does a forced shutdown if you press and hold that power button. On an iPhone, there is no such thing. So if you have a frozen iPhone that you cannot shut down for whatever reason, you're stuck with that until the battery runs out. And that's what happened to my coworker. She had this frozen iPhone, and she was trying to shut it down, and I was trying to help her. And I tried doing this. I press and hold it for about a minute or so, 2 minutes. It wouldn't do anything. I tried doing the volume down and this at the same time. I did volume up and this at the same time. It would not shut down. When you press the power button on an iPhone, it does this. Doesn't do anything. Because I'm pressing right there. Let me open it up again. So let me press and hold it. It doesn't do anything. If you want to shut down an iPhone, you have to press these two right here, the volume down and power at the same time. But it still sends you to the soft shutdown. It's not a hard shutdown. It's not a forced shutdown. If you keep pressing it, it'll start doing this. It doesn't do anything. So there is no way to do a forced shutdown on an iPhone unless you do a soft shutdown, but presumably your phone is frozen. So what can you do? You have to wait until the battery dies. So that's a bad thing. Okay, the next thing I want to talk about is sending files from your computer, from your Mac to your phone. If you do that, if you send MP3 files from your Mac to your phone via AirDrop, when you come over here and you look for your files on the music app, they're not going to show up there. Unfortunately, when you send files, music files from your Mac through AirDrop to your iPhone, the files do not show up on the music player. You're going to have to look for them on the Files app. So that's very unfortunate, because if you have an Android device, you can send them either through a Bluetooth connection or through a wired connection, and you send them to your phone, and no matter where you put them on that phone, it's always going to show up on the music player. Another bad thing about iPhone is that the file app always struggles to find files. So you basically have to know where that file is before you can find it. It's not like the Android where if you know the type of file that it is, for example, if it's a movie or an MP3 or just another type of file like a Acrobat file, you can just look for it by file type. So with the Apple phones, you can't do that. You have to know where it is. And that often means that it has to be under a category assigned to an app. For example, GarageBand or iMovie. You have to look it up on the file system. You have to go browse and then you have to go to that app, and then you'll find it there if it's there, if you can find it at all. So that's a problem with the iPhones. It's a problem. It's a very messy way of finding files. Another thing I want to talk about is maps. So when you have maps on your phone, you require a connection to the internet. You cannot use maps without a connection to the internet, whether that's a Wi-Fi connection or a data service like a carrier connection that you have on your phone when you're in your car. You need that connection. If for whatever reason that connection is not there, whether it's because there's some sort of jamming, or you don't have service, or you forgot to pay your bill, they disconnect your phone, you cannot use your maps. That is not the case with Android. Android allows you to download offline maps, so you can still navigate with an Android device offline. So for example, if you download a map in your area, usually it just takes a few megabytes, like maybe 70 megabytes. You can use your phone, your older phone, as a navigator. You can't do that with an iPhone. iPhone does not allow you to do offline map download. iPhone, you always have to have a carrier connection, or you could have Wi-Fi, but you're not going to be using it for Wi-Fi because you don't have Wi-Fi everywhere, because you're going to be getting away from your home. So you absolutely have to have a connected iPhone to use the maps. Another problem with iPhone is that if you want to load music like MP3 files to your phone, you have to use the music app from your Mac. So here's your Mac, and you cannot simply drag and drop files. When you connect it through that cord, you cannot simply drag and drop files from the Mac to your phone. You have to use that application, the music that used to be called iTunes, but now it's called Music. You have to use that application. You also cannot send it through Bluetooth. If you try to send a file through Bluetooth to your phone, it's not gonna happen. It's not gonna even give you the option. When you do Bluetooth, when you try, you can find the iPhone, but it'll just say connect to network. It won't say send files like it would if you had an Android device. So that's the cool thing about Android, that you can send the files from the Mac or whatever computer to the phone without any particular application. It's just drag and drop. And you can also send it through Bluetooth, which you cannot do. You cannot do either one of those on an iPhone. So that's another problem with iPhone. Another problem with iPhones is the clock app. The time app, clock app, whatever it's called. Let me open this. Here we go. So once you're in this clock app or time app, whatever it's called, if you go to timer, you're gonna see that there's only one timer. It's not like the Androids where you can have as many timers as you want. This one only allows one timer only one timer at all. So that's kind of weird, because I don't know why Apple decided to just keep it at one timer. Also, the alarms, they're very difficult to set up. If you want to set up an alarm, for example, right here, it has this rotating thing. It's not like the Android where it has a clock and you just press the number that you want to press. This has this thing. You can't do that in a hurry. You have to have patience. And believe it or not, that is an issue sometimes, because I do have situations where I need two timers at the same time. So that's an issue. Another issue with iPhone is that it does not have an option to have a home button. I know that there's a accessibility home button that you can move around, but a fixed home button that's down here with the apps button over here and the back button over here, it does not exist on iPhone, unfortunately. If you have an Android device, you do have the swipe option, like the modern swipe option, like all the modern Android devices do have, same as an iPhone. But the Android gives you an option of just using a home button and a back button and an apps button. On an iPhone, you do not have that option at all. you are forced to use the swipe button. So I find it kind of difficult, especially when you have an issue here, like if you have carpal tunnel syndrome, or you have any issues with this thumb. It would be a lot easier to just do this instead of doing that. Another bad thing about iPhones is that it has this external, right here, it has this external switch. This will put your phone into silent mode if you switch it like that. You can see it's red. That'll put it in silent mode. So that's a bad thing because sometimes you can do that accidentally. I remember my sister spent about a week trying to figure out why her phone, that was a few years ago. She spent a whole week trying to figure out why she couldn't receive any calls or why the phone wouldn't sound. And the reason was because this got switched out accidentally and she didn't even know about it. So that's a bad thing. Another bad thing about iPhones is the volume rocker. They put it on this side instead of over here like the Androids. If you look at an Android, here's the power and here's the volume. I know you can't see it, but this is the volume right here and this is power right here. On an iPhone, they put the power here and the volume here. To shut down an iPhone, you have to press the power and volume at the same time. But sometimes instead of doing that, instead of, powering it down like this, you're going to accidentally just press the volume down and you're going to accidentally lower the volume all the way to the point where you can't get any calls because it's going to be on silent mode. So I don't know why they chose to put the volume rocker on this side instead of this side, but oh well. That's another bad thing about iPhone. Another bad thing about iPhone is that it does not have a USB-C connection. It has a Lightning connector. So you have to connect it like that. So the problem with that is not a big issue, but the problem is that you likely have a lot of these hanging around the house. And if you need one, you have to specifically buy the iPhone Lightning connector. And the weird thing is that they left the other side as a USB-C. So it's almost like they couldn't make a decision. They wanted a USB-C, but they still wanted the Lightning connector, and they did this. So if you ask somebody, I have my phone is dead, can I borrow your charger? They're most likely going to have a USB-C connection like this one. Most likely they're not going to have an Lightning connector. So that's going to be a problem because this is basically universal. This is what everybody's going to have these days. So you're going to be sort of trapped in this world where you need to have one of these, and not everybody has one of these, trust me. Another bad thing about iPhone is that you don't have access to an SD card. So most devices, most Android devices will have a little slot over here. I don't know if you can see that. That's where the SD card goes in. The SD card and the SIM chip go in this tray right here. But when you have an iPhone, you do not have the option for an expanded memory. So you're stuck with whatever memory this phone has. So the problem with that, one of the problems with that is that you cannot expand the memory, of course. But also, if this phone were to die out and you wanted to retrieve some of the files that were in there, if you have this and you have some of those files in that memory card, you can still just pull out the card and you have that with you. On an iPhone, whatever was in there, it's lost forever. So you cannot retrieve it unless you can fix the iPhone. So that's a problem. And as the years go by, they're going to keep making those SD cards more and more and more powerful. So you can keep adding more and more memory. But on an iPhone, you're just stuck with whatever memory was in there in the first place. So if you're going to get an iPhone, make sure you get one of the really expensive ones that has a lot of memory so you don't run out of memory. And the other thing I want to talk about is smart devices. If you were to go to the store and you look at the smart devices like smart bulbs, you're going to notice that most of those smart bulbs are meant to be used with Google. They're all designed for Google, and they'll say specially designed for Google Home or Hey Google or a Google device in general. There are a few that work with Siri. There are a few that work with Apple Home. But in general, the devices out there, they're meant for Google. They're not meant for Apple. So it's a world meant for Google. So if you have an Apple phone, you have to keep in mind that not every device is going to work with Apple. Most of them they're just meant for Google. The other issue I want to talk about is powering down the iPhone. Once you power down an iPhone, it usually means that you want it to be powered down. Unfortunately, if you power down an iPhone and then you plug it in to charge it, it'll start back up again. So let me just show you that. Let me power it down. You have to use two hands to power it down, and then you do that and it powers down. Okay, so now that you powered it down because you wanted it to be powered down. So now you want to charge it. So let's charge it. And it turns on again. So it's basically saying, I don't care that you wanted to power me down. I'm going to turn on anyway. So that's kind of a dumb design. It's been like that for over a decade. So Apple decided that if you power down an iPhone because you want it to be powered down and you want it to stay powered down, and then you plug it in, it's going to turn on again. So I find that to be very annoying because sometimes I do power it down because I want some privacy. I want to make sure that this camera is not recording because there's a virus there. It's not hearing what I'm saying. I power it down and then it comes back up. So that's a very bad thing. And even if you do have the option of powering it down while it's plugged in, and it'll stay powered down. But the problem with that is that in my area, we do have a lot of power interruptions that last only a second or two. So if you power it down with this connected, it will stay off. But when there's that interruption and the power goes out and then comes back, this will turn back on. So it is a problem. And I don't know why Apple decided to do that. But like I said, I had my first phone in 2012, first iPhone in 2012, and they had that same issue. And they really haven't fixed it. And I don't think they intend to fix it. Okay, folks, so that reaches the end of this list. So as you can see, those are just a few considerations if you want to buy an iPhone. So just keep that in mind. If you want to buy an iPhone, there are a lot of issues with iPhones and iOS in general. And they've been there for a long time. Apple has had a lot of time to fix them and they chose not to. As a matter of fact, it's gotten worse over the years. Because I remember I had my first iPhone in 2012 and it had some of the issues that I mentioned here today. But there are new issues and they actually haven't solved any of the old issues. In particular, the power down button. You can't power off your iPhone. That's an issue. That's a new issue that you can't use this power button. You have to use two buttons. So that really affects, I do have a problem with my hands. So that really is an issue for people that don't have healthy hands. But those considerations are very serious issues in my opinion, so you should think about it before you get into a 2-year contract with an iPhone. So thank you for watching, subscribe and thumbs up.